Hi friends. This week at the Weekly Tweek, our cameraman is not here. And so it has been left to only me and our producer, Katie.
Hello.
Hi, Katie. Our cameraman has the camera and the lights and then the mics and all the equipment. So we are going through this episode today using an iPhone, this lav mic that I found at the bottom of my drawer, and 2 lamps. Enjoy. Hi friends. Welcome back to the Weekly Tweek, the show that currently has an MIA cameraman, and so we're using an iPhone today and whatever this lav mic is. This week, finally the government is back up and running and is springing into action. Let's see what they've been up to.
The legislation Congress passed this past week to reopen the government included a provision banning intoxicating products made out of hemp plant.
Shut it back down, please. The only thing preventing a national uprising at this point is the ease of access to hemp. Gummies, drinks, chocolates, nerds ropes. If you take away our drugs, then all of the politically vocal 20-year-old art students will finally have enough energy and concentration to actually cause change. You wouldn't want that, right, Mitch McConnell? Take the cigarettes or the buzzballs, please. Just not the hemp. Cannabis executives warned that rising popularity could drive billions in black market sales, where products face no testing, no age restrictions, and no tax compliance. It's going to be like the good old days, meeting a 40-year-old man-child named after a car part in the parking lot of a high school to buy weed that is most definitely cut with arugula and smoking it in a dog park after hours and then trying to convince your family that that weird smell coming from your clothes is just from an expired candle that your friend lit. As nostalgic as that sounds, I can't go back. And speaking of things being taken away, Syria has become the most recent victim in the Now You See Me ad campaigns. 6 marble statues from the Roman era have been taken from their national museum. The theft was discovered on Monday when staff reportedly found that one of the museum's doors had been broken from the inside. As unfortunate as this is, I think it's absolutely wonderful that our world is becoming a little bit more and more like a Netflix original. And what's a Netflix original? Well, a forced lesbian subplot. Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo, seen here sharing inappropriate thoughts about a Twinkie, are once again making interviewers question their choice of career.
I'll never forget when you yelled, "What?" in the middle of it when we were filming the second. You know, when I was watching the scene, I was like, it was there. Because she liked something that I did vocally. And I was like, this is the best day of my life. It was really funny. That was a good one.
I think we all made the same face Chanel made when listening to that incoherently inside joke-based story. And if watching that made you uncomfortable, just wait till you hear about the breaking news regarding Hitler's dick. Turns out, it's as big as his moral compass. Just like J.D. Vance, Hitler's couch outed him in a sexual way, since researchers found robust evidence that Hitler had some form of a well-known but rare genetic disorder known as Kallman syndrome, which prevents a person from starting or fully completing puberty. Up to 10% of people with Kallman syndrome have an itty-bitty buddy between their legs. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but in the context of Hitler, I'd argue it's okay to make fun of him for this. And in a world of Antisemitic Micro-Peens and Demi-Queer witches, it's becoming harder and harder to know what's AI and what's real. And it's about to get even harder since everybody's least favorite bowling ball, Jeff Bezos, has just announced he is co-CEO of a new AI startup called Project Prometheus. The company is focusing on AI that will help in engineering and manufacturing in a number of fields, including computers, aerospace, and automobiles. As concerningly dystopian as all of that sounds, it's also oddly mysterious since no one knows when the company started, no one knows where it will be based, and anyone who has shared any information about Vic Bajaj, the other CEO of Project Prometheus, has requested to stay anonymous. Project Prometheus is making the singularity theory all the more tangible, and if you don't know what the singularity theory is, it might be a good time to get yourself familiar with it. Now, you might be wondering, why haven't I brought up the recent development in the Epstein files yet? Then wonder no more, because now I've gotten to it, and good news, it will be taking up our entire next segment. What the fudge is happening? before we get to the new stuff, we gotta go over the old stuff. So we're starting from the beginning. It was a cold Tuesday morning in Brooklyn, New York. The date? January 20th, 1953. Jeffrey Epstein was born. Epstein grew up in a working-class family in a gated community. He skipped 2 grades and graduated high school at the age of 16 and attended college, but he actually never received a degree. So how did this nerdy college dropout get involved with the top 1%? He started teaching at the Dalton School, a private school in Manhattan known for having some of the richest families attend. Though nothing was reported at the time, 8 former Dalton students said the way Epstein interacted with the teenage girls had stuck with them since high school. There are some stories and odd remarks floating around about his time there that we won't get into, but due to his charisma and connections to the wealthy, Epstein was later hired at Bear Stearns, an investment bank. And you know what kind of clients come to investment banks? Rich, famous, and tax-avoidant ones. And after only working there for 5 years, Epstein had climbed the ranks to work in a department that specifically dealt with advising the elite on how to do their taxes. Bear Stearns is where Epstein met even more wealthy connections, including Les Wexner, the guy that owned the company that owned Bath & Body Works, Victoria's Secret, and Abercrombie & Fitch. What made Epstein stand out at Bear Stearns was his devotion to secrecy. Besides Wexner, Epstein keeps all his deals and clients secret. Epstein insists that ever since he left Bear Stearns in 1981, he has managed money only for billionaires who depend on him for discretion. Okay, now we're at the part where stuff gets bad. Epstein spent his whole life working hard and schmoozing his way into wealthy spaces, and now, at the ripe old age of 28, he was off working independently as a financial consultant for exclusively billionaires. He kept working, kept schmoozing until 1998, when he bought a little island called Little St. James, or more widely known as Epstein Island. But a less talked about location for his crimes is his home in Palm Beach, where his first allegation arose. In 2005, the parents of a 14-year-old girl told police in Florida that Epstein had assaulted their daughter at his Palm Beach home. And when searching the home, police found tons of incriminating pictures, making his years of sexual offending indisputable. But despite the severity and longevity of his crimes in 2008, he avoided federal charges, which could have seen him face life in prison. Knowing the wealth and connections Epstein had, it was safe to assume that there was a lot more going on behind the scenes regarding who was involved and what hasn't been revealed yet. Just 2 years after the plea deal, Epstein was spotted hanging out with Prince Andrew. Andrew claims this was a breakup interaction, but several women who have come forward since have claimed he was just as guilty as Epstein. Nothing came out of the accusations, though, and the prince is living life record-free. After many years of going on with minimal repercussions, Jeffrey Epstein was finally arrested in 2019 after many expose articles and women coming forward with similar stories about the horrors of the island and the Palm Beach house. At his last court appearance, it became clear that he would spend a year in prison, with the trial no earlier than summer 2020. Prosecutors said they wanted no delay, and bringing the trial quickly was in the public interest. Of course, we know what happened or didn't happen. Officially, it says he offed himself. But with too many coincidences, such as sleeping guards, broken cameras, no cellmate, and an unexplained access to excess bedding, it seems that there may have been a few more hands involved, especially considering his notable clientele and inner circle who trusted the famously secretive Jeffrey Epstein with their own secrets. And in 2021, a close associate of Epstein's, Ghislaine Maxwell, was found guilty of several crimes, including sex trafficking of a minor. This sparked more public outrage and a demand for the release of the infamous Epstein files. Some have been released over the years, including a recent email from Mark Epstein, Jeffrey's brother, that is now popping up all over our For You pages this week, stating, "Ask him if Putin has the photos of Trump blowing Bubba." Bubba is a known nickname of Bill Clinton, as well as, get this, Ghislaine Maxwell's horse. And there are 2 things about this situation that get me. 1, Mark asks if he has the photos, not just if he has any photos, implying that there are, in fact, pictures of Dr. T blowing a Bubba. Secondly, It's that not only are people easily believing that this email is to be taken at face value, that Trump did in fact blow someone named Bubba, but that it's equally likely to have either been the previous president, Bill Clinton, or the horse of a child sex trafficker. Donald Trump, despite being part of the long-time effort to stall the release of the files, has now flipped and posted, House Republicans should vote to release the Epstein files, because we have nothing to hide and it's time to move on from this Democrat hoax. Congress is voting on a bill that would release the Epstein files at the time that we're filming today. So hopefully, by next week, we can sift through some of the most tea-filled emails and letters and gab like a couple of schoolgirls at Palm Beach and finally find out who was involved and what exactly is going on. But for now, we're gonna move on from this depressing mess and learn something basic. Hi friends, welcome back to Very Basic Things. This week's basic thing, riding a bike. I would have thought that most people our age would know how to ride a bike, but that's just my Oregonian bias coming out. Apparently not everyone does. So we're gonna go over that. First off, this is a bike. A bicycle, it's called a bicycle because it's bisexual. Also, it has 2 wheels. Also has this cool thing called a chain. Don't break it, and if it gets too rusty, you gotta change it. These are your pedals, that's where your feet go, and these are your handles for your hands. Now, let's get into the more complicated stuff. All right, now mounting a bike. Ooh, scary. It is, you're gonna fall, you're gonna scrape your knee. You can wear knee pads, but that's kind of only for children. So just buck up, bud. Anyway, what you're gonna do is you're gonna put your dominant foot all the way around, snug your butt right on that seat, and then this is where it gets a little complicated. You gotta get your feet on these pedals. It is easier if you have one pedal that's a little higher than the other, but not completely, or else you're just not gonna get any push off. So then, one pedal here, one foot here, and push. Whoa! There's really no good way to describe it, but you should just try. And then if you're going up a steep mountain, right, what you're gonna do is you're gonna stand up on those pedals. Watch this advanced trick. Did you see that? Did you like that? Now, don't leave your bike like this, or this. What you should do is use your kickstand. Most bikes have this nifty little thing installed called, dun-da-da-da, a kickstand. Because you just kick it down, lean your bike, and you can walk away. Probably not in this neighborhood though, because someone will steal it. That's why you would get a bike lock. I don't have one of those. Long story. There's a couple different kinds of bikes out there. 2 kinds of bikes are fixed gear, which is just your basic bike, you probably had one as a kid, and your multi-gear. My bike specifically has 16 gears in it. I'm not gonna explain how to use them, that's too advanced. Look it up if you want, that's not my job. And that, my friends, is how to ride a bike and other things about bikes. Go ahead and get yourself one. They're on Craigslist, they're everywhere. Oh, also that's the end of our episode. See you next week. I hope it wasn't too bad. Bye!